is in some ways. Headspace, talking about mindsets and talking about, we've brought this up, but really haven't delved into it much at all, about meditation and about how much it's affected you and how it got you back on track. And I know that you're a big proponent of it, and I am as well, although I think I'd probably do it differently than you guys do. But
I'd love to hear how you do it.
I use an isolation tank.
Oh, really? Like a sensory deprivation tank?
Yeah. I do a lot of yoga. Those are two big ones for me. You know, I think those alone have straightened out my brain in a great way. Yoga in particular. Yoga, because it's not. Yoga forces you to do it. You know, like if you're either doing it or you're not doing it. There's no room for distraction. You know, you're essentially forced to deal with what these poses require of you. And I think that in doing so and having this singular focus of trying to maintain your balance and stretch and extend and do all these different things while you do it, and then concentrating almost entirely on your breath, which is a big factor in yoga, it has remarkable brain scrubbing attributes.
Yeah.
I would say, and I don't know much. Before I say this, let me just ask, what are you doing in the isolation tank? Like, what are you doing in your mind?
A lot. Well, you know, I use it for in a bunch of different ways. I don't use it as much as I should, honestly. But I concentrate on. Sometimes I go in there with an idea. Like I'll concentrate on material, like that I'm working on, or maybe jujitsu techniques that I'm having problems with, or some other things I'm dealing with. You know, any sort of issues that I have. Sometimes I do that. Sometimes I just go in there and chill out and relax and breathe and concentrate. There's a lot of physical things that happen inside the tank. There's the amount of magnesium that's in the water because it's Epsom salts. It's really good for you physically. It's very good for the muscles. It loosens you up and relaxes you, and that eliminates a lot of stress. And that physical elimination of stress allows the brain to function with just less pressure. And allows you to relax more, puts things in perspective better. And it gives you this environment that's not available anywhere else on the planet, this weightless, floating, disconnected from your body environment where you don't hear anything, you don't see anything, you don't feel anything, you feel like you're weightless. You have this sensation of flying because you're totally weightless in the dark. You open your eyes, you don't see anything. You close your eyes, it's exactly the same. The water's the same temperature as your skin, so you don't feel the water, and you're floating.
I'll say this, I'm not sure how this is going to go down. I actually don't have any questions about the benefits of being in an isolation tank, even though I don't know too much about it. And I also am I think yoga is great, although I don't do much of it myself. I think, though, that there may actually be a difference between those two activities and meditation. Because there's this is a highfalutin term, metacognition, sort of knowing what you know or knowing that you're thinking. That happens in the kind of mindfulness meditation of which Sam and I are proponents, that I think is a different thing. Where you're seeing, and I'll just try to put this in English, when you're meditating the way we do, you're seeing how crazy you are. You're seeing you're fucking nuts. And that actually has a real value. A systematic collision with the asshole in your head has a real value, because when the asshole offers you up a shitty suggestion in the rest of your life, which is basically its job, like, oh yeah, you should eat the 17th cookie or say the thing that's going to ruin the next 48 hours of your marriage or whatever, you're better able to resist it.
So what do you do?
So, I mean, the basic steps of mindfulness meditation are to sit. Most people close their eyes. You bring your full attention to the feeling of your breath. You're not thinking about your breath. You're just feeling the raw data of the physical sensations. And then the third step is the biggie, which is as soon as you try to do this, your mind's going to go bonkers. You're going to start thinking about, what's for lunch, do I need a haircut, where do gerbils run wild, whatever, blah, blah, blah. You're just going to notice, oh, my mind's going crazy right now. That noticing is the key moment, is in fact the victory. It's interesting because this is when most people think they've failed. I can't meditate because I can't clear my mind. This is the biggest misconception about meditation. You do not need to clear your mind. That's impossible unless you're enlightened or dead. The whole goal is just to notice when you become distracted and start again. You return your attention to your breath, and you just do that a million times. And every time you catch yourself wondering and go back to your breath, it's a bicep curl for your brain. It changes your brain, and that over time creates the kind of metacognition I was discussing before, where you see that you're a Homo sapiens sapien. In other words, that's how we're classified as a species. We're the one who thinks and knows he or she thinks. And that knowing that you have this voice in your head, as Sam likes to joke, he feels like when he thinks about the voice in his head, he feels like he's been hijacked by the most boring person alive. Just says the same shit over and over. A joke that I steal from him all the time. Yeah, that is enormously powerful, because then you are not held hostage by this voice.
A similar thing happens in the tank. I do a form of meditation in the tank sometimes when I go in there without an idea, like if I'm not working on material or anything else, where I just concentrating on my breath, in through the nose, out through the mouth, and I just literally concentrate on the breath, and the same thing happens.
That's meditation.
Well, yeah.
That's meditation.
Yeah.
It's not similar, it's the exact same thing.
The difference is in the tank, after a while, after about 20 minutes or so, that breaks loose to psychedelic states.
Wow.
Have you ever combined the tank with psychedelics?
Yes.
Altered state stuff?
Yeah. It's trippy.
What LSD or mushrooms?
Mushrooms. But the big one is edible pot. Edible pot seems to be as strong as anything in there.
Huh.
Like I eat enough pot where I'm convinced I'm going to die, and then I climb in there. And every time I do it, I go, don't do that again. So, because I just get out so terrified.
What's your motivation when you're eating the pot and climbing into the tank?
So let's see what happens.
Okay.
Yeah, just be scared, be terrified.
Really?
Because nothing ever happens. You never die. But god damn, you're just convinced that the universe is imploding around you, and that
it usually has the character of fear being a major part of it.
But so it's also not embracing the fear, not letting the fear run rampant, and just sort of relaxing and giving in to the vulnerability, the finite nature of your existence, and just breathing and concentrating and letting the dance take place. Because there's some sort of a weird. One of the things that there's a big misconception about when it comes to edible pot is that edible pot is like smoking pot. It's an entirely different process. Physiologically, your liver.
The time course is very different too. You can stay stoned for 3 days.
Yeah, you could fuck up and eat too many brownies and you'll be gone for a long time.
That sounds miserable.
It is, but it's not, because you get something out of it when it's over. The process is excruciating, but when you come out of it, you just feel so happy. Feel so happy it's over.
It's like the joke about the dude who's banging his head up against the wall, and somebody says, "Why are you doing that?" He says, "Because it feels so good when I stop."
In a way, but there's no physical damage. Banging your head up against the wall, you're going to hurt yourself.
This is true. I don't know. I think there seems like there might be easier ways to get to the same wisdom.
Maybe. But I think there's also creativity that gets inspired by the edible pot. Something called 11-hydroxy metabolite that your body produces. It's so different that most people, when they eat pot, they think they've been dosed. Like anybody who's smoked pot before, and then you give them a brownie, they think, oh my god, there was something in that, and they're convinced, because reality itself just seems like it just dissolves. And especially inside the tank, there's something about the tank environment that produces, in the absence of any external stimuli, your brain becomes sort of supercharged, because what you're trying to do when you're just sitting down and concentrating and relaxing is you're trying to focus on your thoughts, but you're still aware of your body. You're still aware of your elbows touching this desk, your butt touching the chair. There's all these different factors there's stimuli that's coming into your senses. Whereas in the tank, there's none of that, virtually. It's almost completely eliminated. There's some, but you can phase that stuff out. Like you could still feel the water a little bit if you think about it. You could still. Sometimes you bump into the wall and you have to like center yourself and you have to like relax again and make sure you're not moving so that you don't touch things, which can kind of dissolve the experience.
There are experiences in meditation where you have that same experience where you lose your sense of the body, but that usually comes with more concentration. You have to be very concentrated on it.
I feel like you would have that experience, and it would be even more intense if you did the exact same thing that you do outside the tank in the tank. I don't think you need any psychedelics in the tank.
No.
It's one thing I tell people when they ask me, should I get high before I do it? I'm like, no, just do it. Just do it. If you decide after a while, if you've done it 3 or 4 times, you're like, I wonder what it's like if I just take a little bit of a hit of pot and see where it takes me. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not going to hurt you. If you're a type of person who enjoys marijuana or whatever. But the tank alone by itself, just the absence of sensory input, your brain goes to a very, very different place. And as long as you can relax, as long as you don't think of too much about the fact that you're in the tank, just concentrate entirely on your thoughts, entirely on your breath, and again, let all those crazy, like, where do hamsters live, like all that shit. Let all that stuff run wild through your mouth. But I feel like in the tank, at least, that gets to a certain spot and then it stops existing, and then the psychedelic state takes over.
Yeah, well, it depends on what the goal is. I think there can be many different goals of meditation or quasi-spiritual practice, and they're distinct. So I mean, the center of the bullseye for me is not suffering unnecessarily, right?
Mm-hmm.
So one thing that mindfulness gives you is, I mean, so it's compatible with every experience you can have. I mean, there's nothing in your experience that isn't an appropriate object of meditation. Most people start with the breath because it's just a very convenient thing to start with. But once you know how to do this particular practice, your goal is to just be clearly aware of whatever your experience is in each moment. So emotions arise, thoughts arise, sounds come in. Your attention is wide open to whatever your experience is. So it's not like, so nothing in principle is a distraction. I mean, you could be meditating right next to a construction site, and the sound of the hammers is just as good an object of meditation as the breath or anything else. So there's nothing, everything is included. But the superpower you're after, which you actually can acquire through this practice, is to realize that virtually all of your psychological suffering, and actually arguably virtually all of your physical suffering, I mean, the difference between physical pain and suffering, which, I mean, those two are not quite the same thing, is a matter of being lost in thought. It's a matter of thinking without knowing that you're thinking. And what mindfulness does, and really any technique of meditation ultimately should do, is teach you to break the spell of being lost in thought and to notice a thought as a thought. I mean, the huge difference is, until you learn how to meditate or do something like meditation, you're just helplessly thinking every moment of your life. You're having a conversation with yourself. You're having content, whether it's imagistic or linguistic, pour forth into consciousness every moment, and so incessantly that you don't even notice it. It's just white noise. And not only does it completely color your experience moment to moment. So, like, if they're angry thoughts, you're angry. If they're depressed thoughts, you're depressed. If they're sad, you're sad. So you become your thoughts, but you also feel identified. You feel that you are the thinker of your thoughts. You feel like a self, and it's completely structured by this flow of mentation every moment, and it produces everything you do. It produces all of your intentions and your goals and your actions, and he said this about me, and now I'm going to say this. I mean, so it's like everything coming out of you is born of this same process. And meditation is a way of recognizing that consciousness, I mean, what you are subjectively, is this prior condition of just awareness in which everything is showing up, sounds, sensations, and thoughts. And thoughts can become just other objects of consciousness. And so, I mean, to take even a very basic example of the difference between pain and suffering, you can feel very strong physical pain, I mean, unpleasant pain, and just be aware of it. In that, like, the sense that it's unbearable is virtually always untrue, because in that moment you've already borne it, right? I mean, the feeling that something's unbearable is really the fear of having to experience it in the next moment in the future, right? Because you're always like, if someone drives a nail into your knee, right? You might, well, that sounds like it's unbearable, but every moment you're feeling it, you're bearing it, right? It's like it's what you're thinking about is the last moment and the next moment, and you're thinking about how much, when am I going to get some relief, and what's the cure, and how badly is my knee injured, and it's like you're worried about the future continuously, and you're not noticing the automaticity of thought that is amplifying the the negativity of the experience in that moment. And we all know that you can have super intense sensation, which is either pleasant or unpleasant depending on the conceptual frame you've put around it. So, for instance, if you had this massive sense of soreness in your shoulder, that you would experience it very differently if it was A, the result of you deadlifting more than you ever had in your life and you were proud of it, right? B, probably cancer, and you're waiting for your the biopsy results, and you're worried about this is the thing that's going to kill you, or you're getting rolfed, like some deep tissue massage, and it hurts like hell, but you actually totally understand the source of the pain, and it's going to be gone the moment the guy pulls his elbow back, right? So it could be the exact same sensation in each one of those, but the conceptual frame you have around it totally dictates the level of psychological suffering, or it can dictate the total absence of psychological suffering.